Well, obviously, the Federal Reserve would be the buyer of last resort. What's happening is you've got foreigners that are clearly backing away from Treasury purchases. You've got some big holders, China is obviously one of them, that have been liquidating their Treasury holdings. And with a lot of those funds, they've obviously been buying gold to replace Treasuries on their balance sheet. But if we got to an auction where there were no foreign buyers whatsoever, it'd pretty much be game over, because that's the world sticking their middle finger up and saying, we don't want your debt, we don't trust you. Well, first understand that U.S. Treasuries are the foundation for the world's financial system. So that's first and foremost. If we had an auction where there were no foreign buyers, that would create massive selling, because who wants to be the last one out the door? And if treasuries are being sold and there's no buyers, then the bond prices drop and interest rates go higher. So can you imagine that happening at the same time the Fed's cutting interest rates? The Fed cuts rates, but yet there's no buyers for the debt. I mean, you'd have market rates going higher with the Federal Reserve losing control of yields, losing control of the Treasury market. All markets collapse. You'd see a derivatives daisy chain of collapse, and all roads do lead to gold and silver ultimately, and that would be the road right there, where if you don't have gold, if you don't have silver, you don't have wealth, because you would see a complete seizing up of credit markets all around the world, and everything runs on credit, whether it be the financial system or the real economy. I mean, goods will not make it to market without credit. So I mean, that scenario is the scariest scenario of all. If foreigners just completely backed away, then that would lead to other foreigners saying, hey, wait a minute, there's no buyers, I want to get rid of mine. And you'd have trillions of dollars of treasuries being dumped, and who would be the buyer? The only entity could be the Federal Reserve, and they would be overwhelmed overnight. I think they've purposely been trying to suppress the prices. The prices get suppressed with derivatives, but who's doing the suppressing? It's done with paper. It's done with paper contracts. I mean, yeah, obviously the best thing to have done was not go off the gold standard, get our fiscal house in order, and bite the bullet back then. It was only a small bullet. Now it's a cannonball the size of the moon. It's not doable now. You cannot fix it. It's mathematically done. The debt cannot be repaid. So the only option is to default, when I say default, the only option is to either not pay or destroy the value of the dollar and make it possible to pay the interest and to pay the principal back. And you'd have to have a dollar that dropped, 80% or more for that math to work out where the debt would be payable. Because we don't know how much gold has actually been unloaded by these BRICS countries. And we don't know what the number is going to be that they're going to revalue gold to, but they will have to revalue gold, because something's going to have to take the place of U.S. Treasuries once they evaporate. In a perfect BRICS world, you'd still see massive problems all over the world, because the dollar is so prevalent, and the dollar is just an offshoot of treasuries. That's what treasuries are denominated in. So as far as foreigners are concerned, if they've unloaded gold, they're going to do relatively much better, but there's still going to be all kinds of pain. Now, the Western world, you're going to see a complete wipeout with countries that have no gold, and you're still going to see big damage on countries that do have gold, because no one has as much gold as they have treasuries. I mean, treasuries are the lion's share of the balance sheet for both foreign central banks and for foreign sovereign treasuries. Foreign sovereign, treasury. I'm not saying U.S. treasuries, but foreign treasuries themselves hold U.S. treasuries. And when the U.S. treasuries melt down or evaporate, that's going to leave giant black holes of nothing on their balance sheets. We do have the gold. There's not been an audit since 1956. I personally assume that we do not have the gold, because if we did, why wouldn't we show an audit every year? Or an audit every 5 years or 10 years or whatever? There's not been an audit in, 70 years. The U.S. can't just go out and just gobble up gold, because there's not that type of size available. And to answer his question, yes, I still believe that, and a failure to deliver by COMEX or by LBMA will certainly be a marker that the Chinese will look at and say, hey, wait a minute, there's no more gold to be had, let's pull the plug. And whatever number they decide on, I think the West is probably going to revalue first, and it's not going to work. The first reset is not going to work, and you may see the East or / Mother Nature mark gold and mark assets to fair logical, water seeks its own level to values that make sense. My thought process is there's not enough money. There's not money on the streets. People are being pinched, and I know you've seen the same thing. I've seen more sales in the last 9 months than I had in the previous 15 years, combined. So we're seeing mass selling. Occasionally you got somebody who's selling to buy a property or a home or whatever, or somebody's selling to buy a business or whatever. But I think, and I generally ask, why are you selling it? And I've only had one person tell me in this year, oh, well, I'm taking my profit. And, of course I asked, you're taking your profit, where are you going to put the money? What's the alternative? And they said, oh, I'm just going to put it into a CD. And I just, what can you say to that? I mean, that's just wrong think. But what's happening, people are liquidating metal to live, because nobody knows, when the plug is going to be pulled. I mean, my advice would be, don't liquidate so that you have a year's worth of bills. You might want to liquidate so that you have only 2 months worth of bills, and then 2 months from now, liquidate again. Because the longer this goes, the higher the price of silver, and the more the likelihood that we have the reset, where all of a sudden, wow, you've got a lot of capital, and that's going to happen at the same time that you see paper assets, bonds and stocks drop in value. So your relative position, the more metal you hold, or if you can hold it long enough, you'll have capital. I'm not going to say you're going to be the winner, because that's not the type of world. I've always said, be careful what you wish for. $100,000 gold sounds good to somebody with gold, but what kind of world will we be living in?